Did you see that?
Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark,
Kirsten.
wondering some things before we get too deep into part two
Yeah.
of our situation.
Yeah.
Have you been watching anything on TV? I mean, did you see the fight?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Is this which I didn't, but also which fight?
The Democratic National Convention, the fight for the soul of the country.
No, the Tyson fight had happened yet. I was like, oh, I thought the Tyson fight was like in November. Did I miss it already? Um, nothing new. Meaning, like I've been watching the same thing. So, actually, you know what? Is that true?
I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah. I think that's true. My sister and I started watching this one old Nickelodeon movie. I don't remember what it was called. Uh, and honestly, like it's enjoyable, but there's no reason to share its name right now. You know what I mean? Like it's it's not quite worth it. Let me finish watching it, and then once I'm done with it, like I'll know whether or not it's even worth like putting out into the world. But I've been still watching a little bit of anime, still rewatching episodes of Community.
I never got into Community. I don't know if that's like unpopular opinion or just that just makes me like, I live under a rock.
No, I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, I personally, I like that show a lot, but at the same time, I mean, it's so, to me, I feel like it is very specific. I don't think it's especially like accessible, really. I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just don't think it is. It's like just a very particular kind of show, and it totally makes sense if you're into it, but also not.
All right, I feel better. I was like,
Yeah.
man, people are gonna be like, how did she? What? Because let's be honest, I get that reaction sometimes when I say I never got into The Office. Um, People are like, what? I'm like, yeah.
Well, another thing that I'll say about the off, or not another thing. One thing I haven't said anything about The Office. Uh, One thing I'll say about The Office, and then in additionally, something that I think is also true for Community. I think for both of them, their first seasons are kind of slow, but you also need to watch those first seasons, I think, in order to appreciate what happens later. And so, I mean, I can totally get if you're just like, you give those things like I mean, even a full season is a lot of your time. And so I can totally get how you might do that and then be like, same thing. Because I feel like, especially something like The Office is so specific and it's such a slow burn. I remember when The Office was like really popular, like those first couple years when
When
it
did
was
it first come out?
like the mid 2000s.
And that's when it first, like the American version.
Yes.
Okay.
And like when I first heard people talking about it. So not, I guess it had a long period of time when it was popular, but the first time my friends were like, "Oh, The Office, The Office, The Office," and when I would watch like a clip or an episode, I honestly wouldn't really get it, and it wasn't until like I hunkered down, went through it, and I'm like, "Oh, that's what people are like. That's what people like about it," and now I like.
I don't know. I'm overthinking it, and this is like the office of my mind.
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely fair to say, like, I mean, if something can't grab it immediately, why, spend that time? Because I mean, there are plenty of other shows that I've watched, and it grabbed me from the first moment. You
Yeah,
know?
and I think those like spoil all of us in maybe the best and worst ways simultaneously. It's
Hmm.
almost like when a show can do that, it's the equivalent of Netflix,
Yeah.
right? Netflix spoils us all in the best and worst way in that you find something you love on there, awesome. You can watch them all right now. Um, but then you've watched it all and you're hungry for more, and it makes you this greedy, hungry TV film. Give it to me now. Like the girl from Willy Wonka. Give it to me now.
Who's the girl from Lanka?
I think the one, not Veronica, Veruca, I think, who turned into a blueberry because she was like bratty, and of course, in one way or another, each kid did a thing because of that or a similar trait of a reason. But there was one, and I think it could have been any number of them. Is it time to eat a blueberry?
Oh no, what? I'm not sure what that alarm.
Don't you hate that? I'm always like, oh man, I'm forgetting to do something. I set an alarm past me, present me up for success, and now me is really screwing it up. Anyway, all that to say, there's one of the moments in that movie where one of the young actors playing the role of what I think is Veruca, it's like, give it to me now. And that's who and what Netflix and shows that you love and can watch all of do to you. Because then you want all shows to do that for you.
I know. Yeah. You know, and it's interesting because it's like, I love the show that grabs me from the beginning and has got me. But I also appreciate the shows where maybe it doesn't grab me at first, but I'm like, okay, I'll keep going with it. And then at a certain point, you're like, oh, this is why they set all this stuff up. This is why I've been watching it. Now, I don't think that The Office or Community are set up like that. But yeah. So, well, what have you been watching? What's been giving you joy this past week? You know,
so much of it has been politics, so I won't get too far into that. But like, I also have been keeping up with like just current events, because I know sometimes we talk about like movies or shows or music or like stuff going on. One of the things that I have been so intrigued by was the effect of everything that's going on the business sector, like in a very real way, because of everything that is going on and how it's affecting people. Like this whole thing with Uber and Lyft, I don't even use either of them very often, never have, probably never will, as someone who like lives outside of the city center, so my car is my safe space outside of my home, right? So I really do rely on my car as a person who lives in a big city. But like having to potentially classify their drivers as W-2 employees versus independent contractors is just like blowing, not necessarily blowing their minds, but blowing the staples of how they built each of their systems, right? Not necessarily to disenfranchise or penalize their drivers, but definitely in a way that now all of those drivers are like, hey, for good reason. But I think sometimes there are good arguments on both sides. Sometimes there are not, and people just need to get with it. But in this case, I do think there are good arguments on both sides, because now both of those companies are having to consider the pros and the cons, and I don't think any of them are intentionally against the driver and they're like, we hate humans, you're on your own. No. I do think they're like, that's such an interesting thing, one of those interesting collateral damage or collaterally affected or impacted things by everything that's going on, that I think there are so many things going on, it's hard to keep track of them all. And so that was one that like piqued my interest. That's just kind of front of mind.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that face. I know you well. What were you about to say?
Well, we were talking about, before we started recording, we were talking about food and things like that. And one question that popped in my mind is now that I also wanted to ask, like, Kirsten, did you eat anything or cook anything in the past week that you were either especially proud of or enjoy? And so.
I really enjoy cooking in general.
Mhm.
Let's see, have I cooked anything? Like, I do a lot of cooking when I first go to the grocery store, and in these times we're currently in, that's like maybe every 2 weeks. If I can stretch it to three, I will. Uh, and so a lot of the cooking is like on the front end so that things don't turn or spoil. And so I'm like fresh and hungry. Let me see. I glance over at my kitchen like I can see through the wall. Let's see. Oh, this is not necessarily or at all anything I have cooked. So get rid of that. Not necessarily. It's not at all anything that I had any part in cooking other than opening my app, going through the drive-through, and saying yes, thank you very much. Uh, but it is new to my life in that one of the things I had stopped doing, like so many of us, back in March was going to Starbucks, which is such a first world pleasure. And one would think, oh, well, they didn't really close down. They're like the postmen of, or the post people of like food service, food and drink service. They don't close for anything. But I just was like, okay, I I wasn't the type of person who cut out a couple things. I cut out everything,
Mhm.
and only a short list of things stayed on the yeah, we still with it list. And Starbucks, though close and though near and dear to my heart, this show is not sponsored, but reach out if you'd like to. Um, yeah, that was definitely one that was close, and I was like, but then I was like, nope. But anyways, long story medium. You know, I love long to medium. I cannot do short. Um, but long story medium, they have a bunch of new drinks out. I say a bunch in that like it's probably three, maybe even four, and I think they all came out at the same time. But again, it's been a minute since I've been there. So,
Yeah.
but one of them is, and they're all like fruit varietals, and they're so refreshing. So they don't necessarily have caffeine like coffee, but they still good. There's this like kiwi coconut water kind of refreshing, sweet, icy, not sweet but a little sweet. It's so good. There's also like a ginger pineapple. It's like yellow. I think maybe also coconut water or juice or something.
Mhm.
There's like a matcha pineapple. This girl loves matcha in any way she can get it. So like I've had so many matcha things that I've cooked that I've gotten from Starbucks, but that one, that matcha pineapple like mashup,
Yeah.
I love a mashup also. So like they got me there too. They have some excellent beverage options right now. And as a girl who loves beverages, and the choice of beverages, right? Because I hit beverages. I didn't just say I love a beverage like I'm a basic novice beginner. No, I love beverages because beverages love me. So I love all the new options. I do have loose matcha powder in my cabinet, and because of my beverage splurge and your inspiration of the pre-recording convo we were having of like cooking cupcakes,
Mhm.
um, I might do like a matcha Earl Grey cupcake. Yes, Food Network, get at you, girl. I said matcha
Oh, wow.
Earl Grey.
Wow. May I ask, like, what kind of icing you would do with that? If it was like a matcha Earl Grey, what you would?
I I might freshly whip some cream
Yeah.
because I think it would need to be a not processed, not overly sweet kind of icing. And so maybe like a freshly whipped cream with also some matcha powder in there
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe a dollop of vanilla
Mhm.
bean, right?
Mhm.
So lightly flavored and hand whipped will keep it nice and light and it won't be like overly sweet because I think that would ruin the nuance of the like matcha and Earl Grey
Mhm.
flavors.
Sounds good.
Mm. Yes, I'll mail you one.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Oh man. Oh, now
Yeah.
you got me hungry.
Yeah, I really love that. I mean, would that be called outside the box thinking, that type of cupcake? Or is that, I think that's just innovative. I love the innovative thinking in regards to the cupcake, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I feel like if you've got it in your cabinet, why not live your kitchen life as if you're on a cooking show?
Yeah.
Because that, I mean, you're not going to win with just a vanilla cupcake.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Go ahead and mix it up. Get a hand whipped, like unique flavor, maybe a zest of something, maybe a lime zest, almost like a key lime nod. But you don't need that key or that lime, just that lime zest, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy being green, but we're gonna make it happen with these matcha lime zest vanilla bean Earl Grey cupcakes. We winning this cupcake competition. How many contestants? Just one.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you feel about getting into part 2 of Horse Girl?
Oh, I feel great about that. Yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, not that I couldn't talk about random other things with you forever.
Yeah.
Because it's raining outside, and when it's raining outside, time stops and moves slower. Time stops when it's raining outside. It moves slower. Slower when it's raining outside.
Kirsten, that reminds me of, I had mentioned that I was watching like a Nickelodeon original like DVD movie with my sister this past week. That song that you just put together just now. That's like produce. I feel like just like the emotion, I would even say like angst that was in there in regards to like the rain. That song would have fit in that movie really well. I mean that as a compliment. Like it's not like a bad thing, but like it would have, if that song had started playing, I would have been like, yeah, okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. Low-key roommate, rapper, boyfriend, move over. This lyricist is on it and on your heels. He's got to come on the show now.
Right.
Oh man. So let's see. We've already talked about the first half of the movie last episode. If you haven't seen it, I guess we should start saying this now. Like, subscribe. I don't know how to put buttons places yet,
No.
but I'll put the word subscribe here. Even if I can't do it in post, do it. Subscribe or watch our other videos, because in the last video, our first video of the channel, this being our second, we discussed that we watched this movie on Netflix called Horse Girl, and it's wild and crazy. Again, we're halfway through. I don't want to give any type of synopsis because it'll take 10 minutes. Do you want to give a brief synopsis of what it is and just let the people know like where we kind of left off?
Sure.
Yeah, because weird stuff just like super started happening.
Yeah. So Horse Girl, a film starring by and co-written by Alison Brie. She plays a introverted, kind, generous woman living in somewhere in California, works at an arts and crafts store, good at her job, cares about her job, has a quiet life, has a nice roommate. That roommate has a boyfriend. They get along pretty well. And, first part of the movie seems like it's this quirky comedy, mundane, looking at like, smaller details of everyday life. But then you learn Allison Brie is a sleepwalker, I guess. And then she has a birthday come up, right? And you see that she doesn't have any birthday plans. And so there's a phenomenal scene in which Allison Brie, her roommate's boyfriend, who's also, I'll say, a gifted rapper.
Mm-hmm. We call him low-key roommate rapper boyfriend, something like that.
Yeah. And then a fourth person shows up, charming, cute, nerdy guy.
We call him Lil Cutie.
Little cutie shows up. They hit Allison Brie and him. They hit it off. Then we're introduced to Allison Brie's childhood friend, who I don't really know what happened, but an accident has sort of like her friend is still suffering from a childhood injury, but their friendship bond remains very strong, very pure. And then, the whole sleepwalking, what happens at night, starts showing itself in different ways. So when Allison Brie wakes up from her night of partying during her birthday, we see intense claw marks on the wall. I believe we talked about this last week as well, where she checks the time on her clock, and I think it's only 2 minutes have passed?
Yeah.
But she's been doing all kinds of stuff. She's like, I don't know how that's possible. And forget exactly where we left off, but she's had a couple things happen where she's misplaced her car. Yeah. She's finding that she sleepwalks. She's having issues with the passage of time, and she's trying to get to the bottom of it. So she's scouring the internet, trying to find answers for herself. Meanwhile, her relationships are going good. Her job's going good. But you as the viewer are like, there's more to this. Not sure what. But
yes. Yeah. As the viewer, something's up. Allison Brie, the main ingenue character, is starting to, shortly before this point, 30, 40 minutes into the movie, is also starting to recognize some very weird things are going on. Her pajamas that are button up are on backwards. She's outside in the middle of the night, like Mark mentioned, all these crazy things are happening, losing time. And then again, huge claw marks are still on the wall. And it becomes a thing with her roommate, who's up to this point kind of also caring, but every scene that this female roommate is in is I told you to call and take care of these marks on the wall. That's the only thing I need you to do. And that is an excellent kind of segue, because at this point in the movie, after these weird things have been happening, she gets her car back because she has to go get it by way of stepdad, whose name it still is in ex-stepdad, because her mom's not around anymore, but we hear both of them reference her and her talk about her throughout the movie. So she's gotten her car back, knows all these weird things are happening. And because of one of these weird things, one of them was she remembers in this loss of time, night shenanigan weirdness happening, she recalls waking up in this white space on this table where other people also in their nightgowns, presumably also in this weird situation. Nightgowns make you think they're also sleepwalking or doing whatever is happening to her in their own lives. She recognized one of these people after at work, because she's telling her coworker about it, who is played by Molly Shannon, and who kind of lends toward this motherly type character, friend, coworker. She's telling her I kind of have a boyfriend, referencing Lil Cutie, who is low-key rapper boyfriend. I can't say it anymore. Low-key rapper roommate's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
his roommate is Lil Cutie. His relationship with Allison Brie is going well. They have a date coming up, but all the while she's at work telling Molly Shannon, work coworker, about this guy. My birthday plans kind of turned out okay. I had a little party. I met Lil Cutie, and he cute. We crush him, and it's real cute. And she, at some point, recognizes, because she starts asking her coworker Molly Shannon's character about like her mom, because that character is older in this movie than Allison Brie, and we hear that she knew Allison Brie's character's mom. And so you immediately, although she's still very kind and caring, you immediately see a show of concern from that character towards Allison Brie's character, in the way of a question of like, you don't think what's happening to your mom might be happening to you? Because she's like asking her for advice. She's like, hey, these weird things are happening. I don't know what to do. Just really genuinely asking for help. And I think while she is talking to her at work, over her shoulder outside of the shop that they work at, it's like a fabric shop, she sees one of the people in real life walking out from the, what you think is like some creepy, maybe UFO or extraterrestrial type thing, because in her research of time loss, she kind of finds things like that. So one of the guys that she remembers waking up and like seeing on one of these white tables with her is walking outside of her shop, and she's like, that's him. She goes outside. She doesn't like accost him or anything, but she does see him get into a car, van, a business logoed vehicle. And so now she knows where he works, or like that element about him. And so she goes to inquire, or right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and she has like this conversation with him at his shop, and
so awkward.
It's so weird. She throws down all the money that her stepdad gave her.
A stack of hundos.
Yeah. I was a little, I mean, like.
Say what you're thinking, because I think it's how I'm feeling about that scene too.
Well, it was weird that she threw it down. It was weird that he took it.
Yes, absolutely. I wrote down, what type of transaction is handing over a handful of money without specified expectations of service?
I don't know.
And like, if you guys will watch the previous episode, you'll kind of hear us touch on like, there was such value in the writing behind this Allison Brie character, because although she plays a very sort of naivete style ingenue character, in the kindness that this character is, I respected, and we spoke about like how in the writing she is written to be aware of these weird things. She is observant, and she is not a dumb female lead, which often happens because that's like the world we live in. But when this happens, I'm like, but what happened to all that, the great groundwork? No? Okay, handful of money? Okay, great. So I too felt a certain kind of about that scene.
I was also just like, can that guy, I mean, like, I don't know, but I was just like, how can he take that? Like, that's what I didn't, like, how does he even, like, file that?
In his books.
I took $1,000 for talking to someone, you know what I mean? Like, it was just weird, you know?
And like the follow through, I think her intent in doing that, right, was, hey, I recognize this person. I need to do some recon for myself and follow this person, go to this person's shop and see if I can drop hints as to what's going on with me, to see if this person also might unknowingly know me, right? Mm-hmm. Or subconsciously, however you want to look at it. But instead, he's like very oblivious, seemingly. There's this awkward handover of a stack of hundos, no paperwork, and if there was that they want us to assume, then why assume we're those type of people who want to fill in those type of holes? I almost said dumb holes, but I don't want to offend anyone. And then he's like, oh, well, we'll come by tomorrow. And then what happens is, like, I think the next scene, the guy or the company comes over the next morning, but it's not the guy she wants. It's like a worker guy. It's like a plebe, right? It's like someone who works for him. And instead of going, like, coming up with another something to get herself out of it, she just lets him rip up the floor of the kitchen. Her and her roommate are, I think, just renters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're getting all new plumbing in this apartment that they rent, and rightfully so. Roommate comes back in, who's been asking her to get the scratches, the abnormally large scratches on the wall fixed that are still not fixed. But instead, ingenue character is like letting this person rip up the floor, who is not even the person that she wanted to show up, but still she allowed for this. I was bothered.
Yeah, and I guess she's doing that just so she can have a little extra time to ask him questions about the
other guy.
The other guy, yeah. And so, which is just like, oh man, you know, it's like you're kind of starting to. I feel like she clearly wants to get to the bottom of this, but she's not making the best decisions right now. Almost is it fair to say that she's unraveling a little bit by the time that the floor is coming undone just to get a couple questions, or is that more so that she's like sleep deprived?
I think it's both, plus some unknowns that we either don't know as the viewer or that are unknown because there are too many. I do think whether purposeful or not, the intentionality behind your word choice of like unraveling, right? Because I do think this is the beginning of a definite unraveling of this character. And as we come to find, as we will continue and finish talking about it today on this episode, it's like her unraveling as a character, again, after all of that wonderful groundwork of like Vanellaville laying the groundwork for, a fun ride to start happening. The unraveling happens so quickly. The regression of this character and the collective control that they had on their life dissipates so quickly that I'm like, I'm here for it. Clearly we're talking about it and we're clearly low-key obsessed. But it's definitely where I started to go like, why do we have to sacrifice this other stuff to keep all this other great pocket of stuff? I assume it kind of happens right here because, again, the Alison Brie character, though her quote unquote unraveling happens fairly quickly from this point throughout the end of the movie, there is a high hanging fruit element of her character still hanging on that you see happening, not at maybe the very beginning, but through the beginning up until this point where the unravel starts to fray, where she is looking at pictures of her mother and pictures of her grandmother. Her grandmother was gone before she was even born. That is script in this movie that is made, and she says it out loud, right? Because she also asks her doctor, right? Yeah. She makes a doctor's appointment because she finds weird marks on her one side of her body, on her like thigh and torso on her side, and in the creepy white room, white table, recognizing other people in their jammies flashback vision that she had, there were big black like shadow alien monster things, right? You couldn't super make them out, but they were clearly, in the context of the scene, supposed to represent shadow alien type characters, and they had super long fingers,
Yeah.
and they were like on the sides, and they were like turning the bodies of the people, like the guy that she recognized. There was another female in that scene that was on the white table. Anyways, so all kind of anchoring back to this next note is the idea of the invisible character. I really enjoy. Sometimes it can be a red herring in that it takes you somewhere that's not necessarily useful, or it's not needed information. But I do think the idea of the invisible character in this movie in particular, in referencing like her mother and her grandmother, fairly continuously from a variety of characters, the ex-stepdad, the Molly Shannon character, coworker, friend boss. I think she talks to her boyfriend about mom slash grandmother and her doctor, and I might even be missing some where this invisible characters are referenced. And I think in this movie it's really helpful because, again, adding to that, the thing about her that is still smart, that is, or intellectual as far as like a bright, a wise leading lady, is that she's putting together the pieces of like, am I a clone? Because she watches this show where it's kind of magic-y, and so she starts to connect dots from that show. And there's an episode where she's watching, and there's a clone, and she's like, how are these things happening to me? Who am I? What are these visions? How do I look so much like my mom, right? How do I look so much like my grandma? We all look alike. You see her doing poses the same as her mom and grandma, I believe, like in the mirror of her room. And she has a dress that is like, and she looks exactly like them. So I think the idea of the invisible character and that anchor to the intellect of the character are both kind of hanging on for kind of dear life, whether purposefully or not. But I really enjoyed that element.
Yeah. And something that was interesting, I don't know if I read or watched an interview of Alison Brie talking about this movie, but I think that there is some real life inspiration about this movie and this character in Alison Brie's relationship with her mother and grandmother or something like that. I don't remember the specifics, but her being a co-writer of this movie, I don't know how, but it was, as I was watching it, it was interesting to be like, oh, this is kind of, some of this is coming from a real place, and who knows how much of that wound up on screen, but it was definitely interesting.
Yeah, I'm like, I wonder.
Yeah, I don't want to misrepresent what she said, but from what I read in the interview, it sounded like some of it was pulled pretty closely, not like the actual events, but I think struggles with mental health with her individually, as well as in her family lineage. But the specifics of which I don't remember, so I don't want to like misstate like the actual disorders or like what she went through. But if I'm remembering correctly, like everyone having their own specific mental health struggles, but then also I think it being tied to what runs in your family, and so I think that's kind of her experiences with that did influence certain aesthetics of the film. And so that came to mind when you were talking about like the invisible characters of the mother and the grandmother. So
yes, and that is such a good point. It's like, and you know me, I'll go down a rabbit hole, so I'll keep this short so that I don't. I think that it's such a gift, maybe, because even with this movie and this example, and even just commercials, when you see something, it's not only the creator's vision of what they wanted it to be for whatever reasons, but it's the viewers perception that controls almost more of the impact or the understanding of what it's about, right? You see a commercial about a dog barking at a window as its humans leave for work, and you're like, all right, is it a dog monitoring commercial? Is it a Subaru commercial? Is it a window cleaner commercial? Or is it a safety while driving commercial? And you're like, oh, it's a paint commercial for the paint on the window seal. I see. Great. Anyways, end of tangent.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, that's great.
Let's see. So, like, she mentions the boyfriend to a bunch of people, the weird experiences to a bunch of people, including a doctor. And the doctor's not mean, but also not super on board with, because again, her unraveling happens so fast. Even in the span of the scene of the doctor's appointment, there was so much unraveling in that one scene. She started strong, right? Hey, I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm losing track of time. Like, I'm just a little unclear, right? It's a great start to be like, hey, I'm experiencing something weird, but not making it weird. And the scene's what, 2, maybe 3 minutes long. By midway, 3/4 of the way through, she's now saying, so do you think it's possible that I'm a clone, right? And she has like, and I'm like, bro, too much too soon. Like, pick and choose some of those. But because of her approach and the rate of unravel in just that scene, again, the doctor's not mean, but by the end, he's like, you might want to talk to the psychology department or behavioral something, right? He's like, I'm ear, nose, and throat, or whatever it is. And she's like, okay, never mind. No. Don't bother. Okay, thanks. Thank you. And she leaves. But I think that is a good segue into the next scene, or what I think is the next scene, of of Lil Cutie, right? Her and Lil Cutie are on their date finally, right? He came back the day after the birthday party to ask her on this date. It was super cute. And now we find ourselves at the date. I think it's supposed to be the evening of the day she had the doctor's appointment.
Yeah, because it's still kind of like fresh on her mind. And excuse me. And yeah, it's a really interesting scene because, you know, they're talking. The considerate, you know, in his considerate ways, like, you know, what's going on. And then she talks about this doctor's appointment and how she didn't feel heard. And he was just like, and she's just like, you feel like the supernatural is possible, right? And he's just like, absolutely. And this is when the signals start to get crossed, because he's just like, what I got from that was just like, I love sci-fi, and wouldn't it be great if aliens were real? That's kind of what I heard from him. But she's hearing, I'm right in everything that I'm thinking, and you agree with me, so you're on board. And that's not what was happening. And then and it's weird because in that moment, at least for me, I thought that Alison Brie was just kind of like, well, I don't know. As I say that, I was going to say like, oh, it was such a nice scene because she felt heard. He felt like he was listening, and it's just like things are getting better. But then she kind of keeps talking, and that sleep deprivation and that kind of manic energy starts to show itself a little bit, and he doesn't catch on right away. And I think it's right after that, right, where she's just like, come on, I want to show you something, right?
Yes, because like in this weird mix of signals of communication, you as the viewer, I think, like Mark just so excellently described, you're like, this is one, this is going great. And also, I don't think they're on this exact same page, but you see them not realize that quite yet, because at the end of the day, the shot goes to like them making out, like, right? I was like, yeah, so cutie, get in it, yeah. And I was also like surprised because the Alison Brie character was made to be, I was like, I thought they would make her be a more awkward person in that post date waiting for your car at valet. But I was like, okay. And then, yes, like you said, she's like, she hits him, she keeps talking, and instead of what might typically happen, right? Any number of maybe a post date makeout or drop off and next day, right? Or any number of maybe expected or typical next scenes or continuing of scenes could have happened. But like Mark said, she keeps talking and she's like, I want to take you somewhere. And at first you're like, okay, she's like fun. Gonna go to like a water park and climb the fence, or gonna go to like Lookout Mountain and look over the city with all the lights on. No.
No. So she has him pull up to the HVAC dude's or the plumbing dude's house, and she's been stalking him. And he's just like, why are we here? And she's just like, that dude's in my dreams. And he's like, all right. He doesn't know how to react. And then she's just like, let me show you something else. And he's like, okay. And then this is when it gets like dark. So they pull up to, is it her mom or her grandma?
I'm not sure which one, either mom or grandma. One of them for sure, though.
Yeah. So she takes him to a graveyard at night. He's not about it. And then she reveals it's either her mother or her grandmother. He's really not about it. And then she's just like, let's dig them up. I'm a clone. Let's dig them up, run some tests. We'll be able to see once and for all if, like, this is what's happening. And he's like, I don't know how you react in this moment. I don't know what you tell someone like this. But he's just like, yo, I don't want to dig someone over.
And I mean, bro, she had a shovel, a little like freaking a gardening shovel or something in her bag. She was ready to go.
Yeah. It was bad. And he's just like, I can't do this. And she gets upset. Because, I mean, and I guess in her mind, this is the one person that's been believing her up to this point.
Yeah.
He's the only person that she's opened up to this degree, at least about like the clone stuff. And so
kind of in her life, they almost in the movie, maybe like you don't see her having any other developing relationships like this, or friendships even, or
yeah. So I mean, I can also see from her perspective how this rejection hurts really bad. So she starts screaming and all this stuff, and she screams at him to leave, and he doesn't want to leave her alone at a graveyard in the middle of the night, but she just will not have it any other way. So he leaves. Um, it's like, yeah, it's tough, you know, because it's like she's clearly going through something, and he wants to be helpful, but he can't be. She feels rejected. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just bad all around.
Yeah, it's like you feel so bad for both of them. I mean, but you feel maybe mostly bad for her because she's the lead character that we're all following.
Yeah.
But I think you feel bad for both of them in the sense that you really thought these two had found each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? The birthday party scene where they met and kind of fell for each other was the cutest, most awkward, like wonderful scene. And you could just see, oh my gosh, this is so cute. And so you see it through, like, you see it be its potential greatest with them like being on the same accord and being on the same page during that dinner conversation where it seems like they are, but that is the passing of the ships where it's like, yes, we're in the same place, wait, where are you going? And it just derails so quickly. And like, I think she like yells, I'm being attacked, to get him to leave, or like, right?
Yeah.
Because he really doesn't want to leave her there. He even recognizes she is going through something beyond what he realized.
Yeah.
Until like, truly until this moment where because he doesn't want to leave her because he cares for her. He did really like her. He does at this point, but he doesn't know what is going on or what to do. And she's like, leave me. And so he leaves.
Yeah.
I'm so sad to see him go.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then the exponential unraveling continues. I think the next scene is like the Alison Brie character back at home. I think it's the same night. She's in her like nightgown. She's saging the shit out of the apartment, so much so that it's like foggy in there. She's still like panicky and heavy breathing. She's in a nightgown. Not that that's pivotal, but like she's home, undressed and unraveled, and saging wall to wall when her roommate and Loki rapper roommate boyfriend, there it is, they come home, and they also recognize there's something wrong with her because she's crying. She's like, I can't, I'm a clone. And it's just, right? That place where you know someone is in need of, you don't typically know what, but you know someone is in need. And I think she like runs away from them in the apartment into her room and then into her bathroom, the main character, Alison Brie, and gets in the shower, which is important. And I don't know if we realize how important it was until this moment. We have seen other water scenes, flashback scenes of mom make you believe that she maybe committed suicide, where it's very unclear. She's laying in front of, on the floor in a bathroom, and this flashback of the mom character, the invisible, but not alive. She's laying what seems like dead on the floor of a bathroom in front of a running shower, which again, until this point in the movie, I don't think I connected the water connection. Because in Alison Brie's current panic at this point, currently in the movie, she runs away into her room, into her bathroom, and while still in her nightgown, gets into the shower and turns on the water and finds what seems like relief for whatever reason. With this water connection, she knew that that's what she needed. Goes in there, turns on the water, and stands under the shower spout and like breathes, and you see her get some sense of relief. And then shit gets like, I mean, the bonkers train is here. Get in, get on, and buckle up, because I say the next scene, but it's kind of like the same scene, right?
Yeah.
We go from her being in the shower, post panic, post cemetery, post bad date.
Mhm.
And from the shower, it cuts right to her. Oh, wait. And so, shower scene, she like opens the door of the shower, and we go directly into her stepping out, no longer has her nightgown on, completely naked, and she has opened the door to the shower and stepped into the fabric store. Like she has been transported through the shower, through the water.
Yeah.
And I think it's mention worthy, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, to flashback mention to the scene where her car disappeared on her and she had to go get it the next day because of that. She was like, "Where's my car?" Right? Because she didn't know.
Yeah.
It. I think we last see the car before it gets lost, and it is said where it's found outside of these big white water tower silo things in town. So again, a water connection that we saw as a viewer, but again, this water connection hits home right here because girl walks butt ass naked
Yeah.
into the back of the fabric shop, and she doesn't know how she got there either. And so a different type of panic kicks in. She is aware, and it's not even evening anymore, Mark, which I'm just now realizing. She
Yeah.
went into the shower post date night, post cemetery, post
Yeah.
panic, and she opens it,
Yeah.
walks into slash out of it into her fabric shop, and it's the middle of the day. I'm just realizing, oh my god, did you see that moment? And she's naked.
Yeah. And you're scared for her because you're just like, what is happening? You know what I mean? Like, because you're in the same position of her as her, because the last thing you saw is the last thing that she seemed to have seen.
Yep.
And like, yeah. And so, and she, I mean, her acting is great in that because she just looks terrified, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely
wild.
definitely one of the more challenging moments in the movie is like seeing her realize like I don't know where I am, or I know where I am, but I don't know how I got here,
Yeah.
and scared and literally naked and afraid. You know, like yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And like, it's not like she steps naked into the shop and just the teleportation and loss of time is an issue. No, there's more, because it's the next day, and in real time in the movie, the shop is full of customers.
yeah,
And so she just out loud kind of shrieks and calls for her Molly Shannon character coworker friend and goes, like, help, what's happening? And she's like, literally is like, what's happening, help me, and like crouches down, and right. And so Molly Shannon character rushes over to cover and comfort her, pull some fabric down to try to wrap her up because again, she's naked. And another coworker tries to herd people out of the shop, but it's like, oh my gosh. And so Molly Shannon character and Alison Brie's character go into like the back office of the shop, presumably the same door that was used as the teleportation field in which she walked out of in this weird kind of moment. And so she's like a little bit more calm, but also still very clearly like, what the fork is going on? I'm scared. I'm losing my mind.
yeah,
And the Molly Shannon character, again, we already know due to the writing, right, and the trajectory, that the Molly Shannon character knew her mom. And so in this scene, we see her kind of trying to take care of Alison Brie's character and comfort her and say, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna get you help, right? I think maybe they're waiting for a doctor, an ambulance, or something, right? And then in this exchange of trying to receive and give comfort, some more weird shit happens. And I love it. This is one of the moments I love the most and freaked me out the most at the same time, because they're in this little back office. You just had all this like boom, 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 big stuff happen.
Yeah.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, the phone rings and the Molly Shannon character is distracted. Otherwise, I think she probably would have picked it up or silenced it or whatever. But they make it a point to script a distraction, right? The other character, the aforementioned other character who herded people out of the store, who I think is Molly Shannon character's daughter, right? Because
Okay.
in this moment, I remember in the exchange that caused the distraction, she was like, what do I do? And I think she maybe says, Mom. I don't quote me on that. I think it's her daughter because she's much younger, and I think there's a reference to like familial connection to the Molly Shannon character.
Gotcha.
Regardless, that distraction happens at the same time as the like store phone ringing in this back room that they're in. And the Alison Brie character picks it up, says nothing, but the voice on the other end says everything the Molly Shannon character is saying, but before she says it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not just like if I picked up the phone and heard some random voice saying what you were saying. No, it's Molly Shannon character's voice saying preemptively everything that the real character is saying. So Alison Brie is like wrapped up in a blanket or something, naked underneath, post-panic, on the phone, not saying anything, but hearing everything before it happens and comes out of the mouth of the person sitting in front of her. And the last thing, I don't know if it's the last thing the voice says that Alison Brie repeats, or if Alison Brie's character just says, oh, I think she just says it. She goes, I can hear the future. But not as calm, right? It's a very creepy scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved it. All right, so I think the movie jumps ahead, and she almost self-commits, it seems, herself to a psych ward for evaluation.
Yeah. And I forget, we cut to her having been there for 3 days, and she's having a talk, like a check-in?
Yes and no, or maybe no and yes. I think we see her initial interview of like, have you ever thought of hurting yourself? Like those preliminary questions you get on the front end, hashtag normalize mental health, right? I know a few people who have gone through this process. I think that was a snapshot to like the entry interview.
Because my question about that scene is the person doing the interview and Alison Brie's character, I feel like they're not on the same page about however much time has passed.
Are you talking about the guy character?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a scene prior to those ones with the guy character with a black female nurse character who is like, so what's your name? Okay, so what are you here for? But then she like shows her room and the bed next to her. Oh, because that's important. Her room has 2 beds in it, but in this introduction to it, the other person's not in, like the roommate of the psych ward room that she's going to be in, that person's not there. So we don't see that person yet. But the nurse is like, this is just make yourself comfortable. And then I think we meet guy doctor psychologist who we get a couple scenes with him and Alison Brie where yes, they don't, you think it's like, oh, she's doing well. She's answering the questions in a way that seems legit and healthy for this process. But you come to find out that they don't agree on the length of time she's been there. And I think that happens twice in some way. Like, yeah, some, you know what I mean? That time discrepancy with that guy doctor, I think happens a couple times.
Yeah, I think she has like 2 meetings with him.
Which is like
2 meetings that they have.
It's got to be weird for, I mean, I know he's playing a role, but like in real life, for someone who is treating someone who is losing time, how does one help / understand, not how does one believe, but like how does one handle or approach that? Because again, as the viewer, you think this line of questioning from him to her is going great. She about to be out of here. She feels good. He feels good about how she feels. And then at the end of the encounters, you hear them not be on the same reality of the time continuum. And you're like, oh gosh, what would someone do if they're like, okay, you've made all this growth. You ready to get out of here? Yeah, it's been a great 2 days. It's been 3 months, Sally. It's been 3 months, right? What do you do?
Well, I think that was the thing that was kind of interesting about the movie. And it felt like the movie was also kind of making a commentary about it, where the way things are set up, they don't have the proper funding to give people the treatment that they need.
Yeah.
And the guy's hands are kind of tied because he's just like, well, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, so I may not be remembering this incorrectly, but the vibe that I got from him is just kind of like, well, you still probably could benefit from getting our help, but we can't help you anymore. And because you're not showing these specific signs anymore, we're just going to send you back out there.
Yes, you better comment on the system. Yeah. Yes.
And
all of that.
Yeah, and I think they even maybe reference, like, at what point, like, funding changed. I forget what happened. Yeah. But they got a little specific with it, where it's just like the way it's set up right now, we kind of take you through this thing, and after X number of days, you're out, you know?
Yeah, and that's such a good point, Mark. Not just about the same thing in the world, because that is so true. And I think the movie is commenting on that in an intentional way. But also in the movie, they also, I think, put intention behind, not in a negative way, but just to comment on the reality of how people see mental illness. The ex-stepdad character, who clearly was married to this leading lady's mom, loved her and still loves the Alison Brie character very much. But even she asks him about, like, so when did mom start showing signs of like what she was going through, right? They always mention it like it's like, you know, she was different, and they don't, and that happens in like real life too, right? I think a lot of the reason why mental health awareness is not lifted up as a conversation as much as it should be, and it's not normalized. I know the word should is dangerous. I try not to use it very often, but those are my personal thoughts about how it's approached. And again, the ex-stepdad character is warm and loving in how he is a character in the relationship. But even he mentions like, oh, she just couldn't take it anymore, right? Oh, she just this. Oh, she just. And your point is so valid that I do think the movie was commenting on so many things, and I think that was one of them. And I really value that about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to what we were saying or talking about earlier, in that, you know, there are certain elements of this, I'm not sure exactly what, that are taken from Alison Brie's life and family history, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think so there's that, you know, this movie is clearly invested in, you know, the topics that it's covering, you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh, so much yes. All right, let's see. Oh, while at said psych ward, while at said psych ward. Ooh, what a tongue twister. While at said psych ward, show all of your teeth. I think towards the end of the psych scenes of experience in the movie, there are a couple that I think are important enough to touch on. One of them being there's like a night scene, I believe it's night. Or am I getting ahead of myself? Because there are two very pivotal ones. And I don't know if it matters if I get them out of order. So forgive me if I do and correct me.
Oh, no, I mean, it makes sense. This is the part of the movie where I'm not confused, but I think intentionally they're jumping all over the place. It's like, I think they are intentionally trying to blur the line between dream and reality, you know? So when reflecting on this part of the movie, it can be kind of challenging because you're just like, things start to blur together intentionally so.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because I was like, was it just me? But I also think for all of those reasons, they did intentionally jump in time a whole lot, which makes commenting on it very interesting, but here we go. One of the psych ward scenes was when the Alison Brie character is like in her room by herself. The shot is like behind her, and you see her standing in front of the window of her room looking outside. And then there's a shot from outside to where presumably she's looking at, like the front door of the psych ward where there's outside space, right? She sees herself in the same nightgown that she is in as a character. She watches herself walk out of the psych ward and like into the night. It's wild. And then she goes on this like little journey in the night as this other piece of herself. And I wrote Pink Floyd bodysuit. She put on this all pink suit did she make this suit earlier in the movie and I missed it?
Well, I think when you see her like sewing with the material that the tarot lady, I forget the lady that she meets in the beginning, or what color is it? The color is intentional, right?
Wait, what lady?
Remember the lady in the beginning that gave her the sage in the very beginning of the film?
Yes, her calling card was sage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's that same color of fabric that the lady was looking at, or if it's some other color.
You know what color now that you say that, and I'm thinking back on like when and where, it looks like the same color or a similar color to the dress she went on the date with Lil Cutie in. And
Right.
that dress was the exact same dress, I think a hand-me-down from the picture in which she was trying to mimic of her either mom or grandma, whichever one it was in the picture.
Yeah.
They're wearing the same exact dress that she puts on to go on the date with Little Cutie in. And what I'm calling the Pink Floyd onesie thing was a similar color to the fabric she used the Molly Shannon character used to wrap her up in when she showed up naked in the store. It's like light pink, salmon-ish. Sorry, I really just like talked that out because I'm kind of putting those together as we anyway, so like I think we are made to believe she has made this, because we say pink suit, it's like a ninja suit. It's pants with footies, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of not quilty, but it's not like a flat matte pink. It's like a textured, almost quilted fabric of a texture. Don't know if that matters, but it also has like, we live in that mask life, right? Like, you know what motorcyclists wear, the like ones that come up over here, and then there's just the slit for the eyes. She's in this like all pink arms and everything suit, and she like, I don't know how she gets in. I think she like either knocks or just slips in. um she goes to visit the little horse friend of hers at the
Mm-hmm.
horse stable that she's like soups obsessed with.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe steals him away,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
She goes to visit little cutie,
Mm-hmm.
and they have like super steamy sex, and I'm like, is this a dream? Is this real? Is he really having sex? You don't know.
And then it changes from him to the guy from Purgatory, because they
Which is
both
the
have the
show
same
she
name.
watches.
Yeah, because they both have the same name. He's like, you're like, is it Darren or something like that?
Yes, Darren.
You're Darren from Purgatory. So it starts as Darren, the person that we know in real life, and then turns into Darren from Purgatory. And at a certain point, the sky opens up. And you're like, all right.
It's so weird.
Like my background, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then let's not forget, on the back end of whether real or not, he turns back into little cutie version of Darren. In this like sexcapade memory night walkie thing, whatever. And then I might be missing something, but like the sex happens on the bed, or not that it has to, but in this scene it does. And then she like gets off the bed, puts all the pink ninja suit back on, the pink Floyd suit or whatever. And I think she like uses a pen or a pencil or something, and she like opens up the floor. She draws like a zipper or something or a door, and she opens up the floor, and it is this inside image of an earlier outside shot of one of those scenes with no people in it from way earlier in the movie, where all you see is a door of light hovering over water. And so this is like, she opens the floor of little cutie Darren's floor after they, you know, have afternoon delight. Woo! And she like exits through the floor. She just steps in there. And you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I also think we see the shadow aliens, because she is walking through the white hallway space past the doors of where she found herself sleeping on the white tables at one point, right? So we see the dark alien people doing the on the side of the other people. But she's in this pink suit, and she's like quietly walking down the hallway and seeing into the doorways of these things happening in this white space with these alien people through this door that she has entered through the floor of. It's just wild. I think is this also, because this is like this time jumpy thing, she finds herself still in weird pink ninja suit dreamland state scene. She finds herself at the home in the room of her childhood friend who has the brain delay due to the accident as children that they had riding horses together. Why Alison Brie's character still loves horses and still goes to visit her horse from that time, which is not her horse anymore, but she's obsessed.
Yeah.
And she has stolen the horse away in her pink ninja suit. And at the end of this like wild time lapsey jumpy scene, she goes to the home of her childhood friend and crawls into bed, not in a like weird, creepy, sexy way, but like she just wants to be next to her, and she seemingly closes her eyes and goes to sleep in the bed with her friend. Um, and then she wakes up back in the psych ward, back in her black nightgown that she was wearing, in which we watched her watch herself walk out of the psych ward like 10 minutes prior. Mm-hmm. And she is in the bed of the other bed in her psych ward room that was previously empty when she was introduced by the nurse who interviewed her to the room, but she's now in the other bed, and there's someone in the bed now. It's this dark-haired female with like long curly hair, and she's like in the same position in which she went, right? It's like a mirror scene of how she went to sleep with the other friend, woke up in the bed of this one, but immediately she wakes up a split second before this dark-haired girl who's now in this psych ward room, and sits back on her bed. And the girl was like, "Were you just in my bed?" She was like, "Who are you?" She's like, "I'm your roommate." But anyways, she is one of the people from the white room table that Alison Brie's character saw like an hour ago in the movie.
Yeah.
And she didn't have a roommate at the psych ward before. I want to tag you back in. I can just get in a rabbit hole of words.
No. And it's yeah, you know, you meet this person, and it's what the thing that I liked about this interaction is that I feel like they're kind of able to open up to each other, and they have a chance to each share like what they've been going through a little bit, and they kind of like share like what they've been going through, and they each are like, you know, I may not understand what you're going through, but I'm like, oh, I can see that, you know, because it's like I think they each share like their thoughts and how they think that they are where they are. Yeah.
And it starts kind of, I say starts that moment, right, of the like waking up and being like, "Are you in my bed?" Like already awkward. But it's like the Alison Brie character recognizes this other person from this weird white room dream state she found herself in earlier in the movie. So Alison Brie's character is like, "I know you. Like, do you know me? Do you remember me?" And like for real, she's just like, we know each other. Like, I know you. Okay, do you know me? Because similar, she followed the plumber guy, right? That was another one of those people on those white tables in that room in that scene. But the girl is like, I know that you were just in my bed. I know that you're in my room, and I guess you're my roommate, right? So this other girl is not super warm, not super welcoming to this situation or this conversation. But Alison Brie's character is like intent on like, no, I know you. You know me. You just don't know that you do. We are connected. And I think we come to find out through their sharing of Alison Brie's like, just tell me why you're here. Just tell me. I don't care. And the girl's like, nobody ever believes me. That's why I'm here. People think I'm crazy and I don't know what to do because it's the truth for me. And Alison Brie is like, oh my gosh, no, tell me. And what the girl says is like, well, bro, I woke up, or I went to sleep when I was, 16 in 1961, or maybe not that long ago, 1981, and I woke up in 2010. And you're like, what? Because she's also lost a lot of time. Very different than Alison Brie in the scope of time, but still lost a lot of time. People think she's crazy. They both find themselves now in the same room. And we have another scene after this because Alison Brie is like, I'm not crazy, and neither are you. Oh my gosh, neither one. We're gonna be fine. And then we have another scene with the psych doctor again, where they don't match up on time, which also doubles down on the fact that like Alison Brie's character just time traveled again as well. the
Mm-hmm.
girl has been. Alison Brie just did in her little night walk. Like, it's, I loved the weirdness and the time jumping. It lost me a little bit, but I was there for the whole thing. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're almost done talking about Horse Girl. Like, we're almost to the end of the movie. Finally. What I have that being like almost the last thing, and the next thing kind of being like, I guess she gets released from the psych ward, even though there's like not the matchup of time, but she's like, I feel better, I feel good. I met my roommate, blah, blah, blah. We like talked, everyone's feeling good. But I guess she gets released. And basically, the Alison Brie character connects back with the horse that she stole away from the horse farm where a long time ago she had the accident, but still goes and visits this horse and stole away in her midnight shenanigans and her pink outfit. So the next thing I recall is that she's back with the horse. She is, I think, in the dress, the aforementioned dress that she went on the date with, and the one that's being worn by the person in the picture, whether that's her mom or her grandma. She's back in that dress, and she's got the horse. She's walking into the woods, and you're like, what's happening? What's about to happen? She ties the horse up and it's like eating some grass. It's like chilling. And she's like, it's happy, you know, that it's at peace. And as a lover of alien conspiracy theories, space, just those type of things, I love the accuracy of the last scene, or even just the attention to detail. And there's one little thing that there are two in particular, but this one thing is like this weird attention to detail. It's like the vacuum lines in the carpet of this movie for me. And hashtag I love vacuum lines in carpet. So she ties up the horse, it's chilling, and she takes off her shoes and very carefully places them kind of off to the side or next to where she then lays down on the ground in the middle of the woods. The horse is like right over yonder. And again, her shoes are just like, she took off her shoes though. And that attention to detail, not knowing what was about at this point, again, as a lover of these type of things, I had a hint as to what was about to happen. And I was like, that's so important that you do that. Because she takes off her shoes, she lays down on the ground, and then you see this light, this rectangle of light, just like when there was the scene of the door of light over the water earlier in the movie, and the same square that she walked into in her little night shenanigan dream. So she's on the ground, it's the middle of the day, and you see her like get lit up with light, and then she just levitates up into the air. And the delicacy and you can see like her feet go from like, because when you lay on the ground, if these are your heels, right, your feet are up with your toes up here. But when you get, whether someone lifts you up or if you levitate into the air, your feet, right, do that, and your shoes would fall off. But she had already taken them off, and I was like, yes, preparing for liftoff. The aliens picked her back up, and she knew where to go. I don't know. Was that like the bulk of that last scene?
Yeah, she my question for you, Kirsten, when she was taking the horse out to the field and then she laid down right before the aliens showed up, were you thinking in your mind, I think aliens are about to show up and take Alison Brie up into the sky? Because I did not see that coming at all. I mean, once it happened, I'm like, I mean, it makes sense with what had been the groundwork that had been laid. So it's not like it came out of nowhere. That being said, I did not see that happening. And then the movie ended and I was just like, wow, like, just like, whoa, I mean, I guess that's it. Wow. All right. She's really gone.
I mean, I felt all of that also. The only thing I will say is that, yes, because of the fact that she took off her shoes and then laid on the ground, and contextually in so many of the other shows or movies, it's the like the clothes, the belongings of the what's left, right? After you're often it's the shoes. So I had a feeling that something like that was about to happen. And I don't know if I would have still had such a good feeling of what was about to happen in that last moment if I didn't also have the Life Library in partnership with the very clear alien breadcrumbs that were being dropped real heavy. Anyways, but I still experienced everything that you did immediately thereafter. I was like, okay, because I was thinking it was gonna continue and there was gonna be another scene where we see exactly what's not just a hint as to what's happening, because we've seen shadow aliens from afar do it to those other people, right? But I really was expecting a next scene where we see the mom or the grandma being like, you are a clone, or like the aliens speak, or like something to tie up what were a myriad of lovely loose-ish ends. But I really did think they were going to tie a few of them up with at least one more scene of clarity. But again, or maybe not again, maybe their intent specifically was not to, because it's not like the whole movie wasn't kind of like that. It was so weird. So, oh man, I almost got carried away with that UFO talk. I got lost. Oh my gosh. I guess that's kind of it for Horse Girl.
Yeah.
We lived, we loved, we lived to ride again. Is there anything else you want to say before we bid adieu?
I guess I'd say I really enjoy the movie because of just like, you see movies, you see a bunch of stuff, and I think it's special when a movie or a TV show or whatever has you thinking about it even the next day after, versus like it. And it's not even so much a question of like whether it was good or bad, but I don't know. There's something about a movie that made you think something, or you saw something in such a way where you just think about it afterwards, in addition to how it makes you feel while you're watching it. And I feel like that this movie Horse Girl definitely did that. And I think that's like a cool thing that works can do. And so I appreciate that. That's something that I really appreciate about Horse Girl.
I feel like, because this is the second episode of our channel, but the first thing we've like reviewed or whatever, I want to come up with like a rating scale.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, I think overall, maybe like a 1 out of 5 A's for story. You like that?
That's pretty funny.
Okay, cool. So we're aiming for a total A's. How many out of 5 A's would you give? What kind of, let's do like 3 categories. Story for the basic overall storyline. How many out of 5? You want to do out of 5?
Sure. Yeah. Well, you know, with Horse Girl, a story is kind of an interesting thing because, you know, from what I understand, a lot of the scenes were heavily improvised off of a very detailed outline, and where they would improvise it a bunch of times, nail something down, and then that's what they would do. And they were improvising off of like a very detailed outline where the story was beat out beat by beat. That being said, it's just like, I feel like a lot of it is trying to upend a normal story structure in the sense that you don't always really know what's going on at any given moment. I don't know if you know what I mean? Like, you're left with like a bunch of questions. So I mean, like, so from a story perspective, it's tougher to evaluate it because in a lot of ways, it's not like a traditional story. You know what I mean? Like, there is a beginning, middle, and an end for sure, you know, and it does have all these story beats, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to be too, anyway, 3 out of 5 is what I'm saying. But I'm saying, like, I like it a lot, but it's just like, that's not really like, but also story didn't always seem to be like the top priority. It wasn't like a heavy, to me, I wouldn't categorize this as like a heavily narrative movie, you know. I guess for me, I'd say like visuals.
Yes.
You know, like what showed up on screen, and I just like the vibes that I got from this movie. It looked kind of funky and different. You know, like it made me feel like I was not alive in the 70s, but it made me think of the 70s.
Okay.
Like,
that's what's up.
Yeah. So for visuals, I'd say like 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5. I really like the visuals. I really like the look of the movie.
And then visuals, you gave 4.5. I'm going 3.5. Is this too many? I was going to do one more. Like, did it get an afterthought score? So, like, how much did it hang on to you afterwards? Good, bad, or ugly out of 5 again? What's your afterthought score?
Yeah, I'd say 5 out of 5 in terms of afterthought. Meaning, like, I mean, I just think about all the discussions we've had about it, all the thought we've had about it.
I love that. Afterthought, you gave a 5. I also am going to give a 5. 1 to 5, A scale. And that's not bad. It gets a 4.1 on our A. Yeah. Oh my God. Horse Girl might live inside of all of us, but we lay it to rest tonight.
Yeah.
As we finish the saga that was and always will be Horse Girl.
Yeah. Bye, Horse Girl.
So, thanks everyone for watching. Did you
see that?
Did you see that?